If you run a daycare and miss these 5 signs of autism, you could be delaying a child's support and losing parents' trust. Hi there, I am Monica Matthews Smith, pediatric occupational therapist of over 22 years working with children in early childhood development, 16 years in the school system, and I help childcare owners, directors, and workers support children with autism with confidence. So I have my notes here so I wouldn't miss one of the 5 steps, right? Because when we're recording, we tend to sometimes go blank. But I wanted to make sure that you understand what to be looking out for in your daycare center, because if you have a child who displays some of these delays, you want to act fast with not only documenting, but also reporting it to the family so that they can possibly speak with their pediatrician and possibly get further testing. Okay, so early detection when it comes to autism or recognizing delays or concerns with development is key. The first concern is limited eye contact. Okay, now there is a difference of a child who might just be shy, or a child who is just so interested in what they're doing that they don't make that eye contact. But if you are calling a child and they're not responding to their name, if you're right in front of them and you're talking to them, little Johnny, I want you to do X, Y, and Z, and little Johnny is not giving you eye contact, little Gabriel or Gabriella is just not looking at you. They're looking down, they're looking around, but they're not looking in your face. That can be an indicator that something is going on that you just need to pay further attention to and definitely document. Okay. The second sign is if they have delayed or no speech. Okay. So, normal child development, at least by about 2, they should be saying a couple of different words, simple sentences, right? And if you know that there's a child who is 2, 3, 4, who is not speaking, maybe they have babble, maybe they just have gestures and they're pointing to things that they want. They're taking your hand and they're leading you to things. They get frustrated if they're trying to tell you something and you're not understanding, and then they start having meltdowns and tantrums. That's something to pay attention to. Okay, so if you see any delayed speech, and especially if they once had speech, but then now their speech has regressed, that is also a sign that needs to be brought up to the parent so that they can take that information to their pediatrician and get further testing if warranted. Okay. The third sign is if you are seeing any, we call them repetitive behaviors, and sometimes they're called stimming or self-stimulation behaviors. So you might see hand flapping. You might see if a child is like really interested in lining things up. So they could be lining cars up, blocks up. If they seem to be really not just interested, but have a really high interest, very highly focused on lining trains up or lining things up in a specific order. And if they constantly do that repetitively, that can be a sign that something needs to be addressed or brought up to their pediatrician. Okay, especially if they are seeming like they'd rather do that than to engage in exploratory play, pretend play, things of that nature. Okay, so if you see any hand flapping, any of this going on, especially like when they're excited or playing alone, and then also if they are lining things up, it could be blocks, it could be cars, it could be anything that just seems like that they are putting things in a certain order and they're highly focused on putting it in that exact order over and over again to where they're not interested in really engaging in other activities. The fourth sign is if they are seeming or if they have difficulty with transitions. So whether it is transitioning from a preferred activity or transitioning just in between the day from one activity to another, if they have meltdowns, if they start to fuss, if they have difficulty just stopping one activity and going on to the next, if they seem to have trouble with change, That's also something that needs to be brought up to the parents so that they can take that information to their pediatrician, because that could be a sign that there is something going on. Typically, children, even if they're engaged in a play activity that they really enjoy, you can pretty much get them to transition away from that activity to go on to something else. You can, get them to transition just through the normal activities of the day. So whether it's playtime to lunchtime to potty time, um, whatever is in your daily schedule, you can pretty much get them to transition. But if there's a child who is just really resistant to those transitions, then that is something to pay attention to. Okay. And then the last sign that we're going to discuss today is if you see that they have limited interaction with their peers. Okay. If they just seem to want to play by themselves, if they are not interested in engaging with other children, if they do not initiate engagement, and even if you put them in a small group or in the midst or next to other children, if they are not engaging in that play, that exchange play, interactive play, and they're just kind of playing side by side on their own, engaging in their own activity, even if there's another student next to them, that is something to pay attention to. Typically, children, even if they're shy, after some time, they should warm up and want to play with their peers, right? That's how we learn how to share and things of that nature. So if you have a child in your daycare who just wants to play by themselves, they are not interested in engaging with other children, and no matter how many efforts you try to pair them up with other kids or get them involved, they just want to play by themselves. That is also another sign that needs to be addressed as well. Okay. Now keep in mind, there is a difference of, if you have a new student who is just new to your daycare, they're just getting adjusted, you can expect them to be a little bit shy, right? Not knowing the staff, it's a totally new environment, especially, if they're coming from, maybe they're the only child at home or what have you, right? And now they're coming into a whole new setting, new people. Yes, it is okay for like maybe the first week or so for them to be kind of shy and want to be isolated. But after that adjustment period, then you can expect them to want to play with their peers, to want to share their toys, or want their friends to share toys with them, right? And so if you are seeing that they're just wanting to be by themselves and just have that alone interactive play, and especially if that sign is accompanied with any of the other signs that we talked about in this video, then definitely, again, bring that up to the parent so that they can take it to their pediatrician and possibly see what is going on. Okay, because the number one thing that daycare workers do that can really delay a child's support is just not documenting and not bringing these concerns up to the parent. Okay, thinking, oh, it's just normal development, oh, they're just being shy, or oh, they're just different, or oh, I have a cousin who like, flaps his hands, and or I had a cousin who didn't speak until he was 5, and now they're fine. Okay, that's all good and dandy, right? But these are definite signs that something could be going on. So the sooner that your staff document and bring these concerns up to the parent, and the parent address these concerns with their healthcare provider, the sooner the child can get support. Because again, these early learning years between 2 to 8 is very important. If there is a delay, if there's a need, that the child get the intervention and services and support that they need during this critical early childhood time. Okay, so again, those are our top 5 signs. Just to recap really quickly: limited eye contact, delayed speech, repetitive behaviors, lining things up, hand flapping, those types of things, difficulty with transitions, and then also limited peer and social interaction. Okay, so document, and bring these concerns up to the parent, because you don't want a child to have delays and the parent now comes back to you and your center saying, well, why didn't you tell me that my child wasn't interacting with the other students or kids in the daycare? Why didn't you tell me that they were having these issues in your daycare? Okay, because I know with compliance, we are to be documenting these concerns, right? And if you're serious about becoming autism ready, my Autism Ready certification shows you exactly how, step by step. For more information about that, go to autismreadycertification.com. Also, the link is in the description of this video.